Poor girl became the billionaire CEO's contract wife for money, but his daughter called her mom on day one. She didn't ask to be loved, but she only asked for a job, a roof over her head, a little money to pay off a debt that wasn't hers. But the contract came with a child who wouldn't stop calling her mom, and a man whose silence cut deeper than any insult. They told her it was just pretend. But then one night, in the dark, the little girl whispered, "Please don't leave again." And suddenly, it wasn't pretend anymore. And some people walk out of prison with nothing. She walked out with less than that. A record, a broken past, and a mother clinging to life in a hospital bed she couldn't afford. Sasha Lane wasn't asking for redemption. Just a job, maybe a basement to sleep in. Instead, she was offered marriage. Not love, not flowers. A cold, clinical contract typed in Times New Roman and signed across a mahogany desk under fluorescent lights. "You'll receive $300,000 a month," the CEO said, without looking up. "It's a business arrangement, no intimacy, 1 year only." Sasha stared at the paper. Her hands didn't tremble. They were used to holding loss. And signed. And that was how she became Mrs. Hayes. Contract wife to Landon Hayes, CEO of Hayes Corporation, a man known more for firing entire departments than smiling in public. The city whispered. The staff speculated. She didn't care. Until she met the little girl. A small hand tugged at hers on her first day inside the mansion. Bare feet, tangled hair, silent lips, and those eyes. Eyes like storm clouds waiting for permission to cry. The girl didn't speak. She simply stared up at Sasha, clutched her skirt, and whispered, "Mommy." The world tilted. Sasha froze. She hadn't touched a child since before everything had gone wrong. Landon didn't blink. "That's Lizzie," he said. "She doesn't speak to anyone else. You'll take care of her now." That wasn't part of the contract. Sasha opened her mouth to object, but Lizzie had already climbed into her lap. Her tiny fingers rested over Sasha's heartbeat, listening. And just like that, the lines in the contract blurred. She spent her nights sitting by a girl who wouldn't sleep unless Sasha hummed. She made peanut butter sandwiches with the crusts cut off. She stopped thinking about leaving. And then, slowly, impossibly, she started forgetting that the man in the hallway was her husband, on paper only. There were moments, like when she dropped a tray of mugs and he picked up every shattered piece without saying a word. Or when he pressed a coat into her hands on the rooftop without meeting her eyes. Or the way he looked at Lizzie. There was pain there, not the kind that burns. The kind that lingers like frostbite cold, quiet, irreversible. One evening, she found a folder left on the kitchen counter. Medical records. Her name, a date, a red stamp that read, "Discharged after childhood, patient memory loss due to trauma." Her world cracked. I gave birth? When? Where? And why? Why don't I remember? That night, as she tucked Lizzie into bed, the child pulled something from under her pillow. Necklace. Lucius's necklace. The one she thought she lost in the hospital fire 5 years ago. But she confronted Landon. "Why do you have this?" He didn't lie. "Because 5 years ago, you saved my daughter's life, and lost your own in the process." Everything spun. The contract, the child, even the man whose eyes had never once softened until now. But before truth could finish stitching together what fate had torn apart, a car screeched. Sasha was rushed to the ER. And this time, she lost the baby. In the waiting room, Lizzie clutched the hem of Landon's coat. "Don't let her go again," she whispered. "Please." And for the first time, Landon Hayes, the man with no mercy in business, the man who hadn't smiled and dropped to his knees and prayed, not to win, not to survive, just to keep her. That night, in the hospital room filled with silence, Sasha opened her eyes. She didn't ask about the company, the contract, the money. She looked at Landon, then at Lizzie. "Tell me the truth," she said softly. "Is she mine?" Landon swallowed the lump in his throat. "He's always been yours. I just didn't know how to tell you." Outside, the rain fell. But inside, the three of them sat beneath a dim hospital lamp. A man who once buried love, a woman who once forgot how to feel, and a little girl who never stopped calling for home. Chapter 1. The Contract. There was no warmth in the way he spoke. Each word was clean, precision cut, like everything else about him. Landon Hayes didn't look up from the contract as he spoke. "It's for 1 year." Sasha Lane said nothing. Her hand stayed on her lap, fingers interlaced so tightly her knuckles had gone white. The oversized gray coat she wore still smelled faintly of hospital antiseptic. The receptionist had glanced at her shoes, old canvas, one sole worn thin, and said nothing, but her eyes had said plenty. Landon turned the page. "Ritual functions. No media interviews. You're not obligated to host or attend social functions, but when required, you will appear as my wife. Publicly, legally." She finally found her voice. "To daughter?" She paused. A breath, barely audible. "But care for her." But that hadn't been in the job posting. Not exactly. The listing had been discreet. Private domestic position, temporary, high salary, confidentiality required. But this wasn't a cleaning job, or a secretarial one. It was a contract marriage, and not the kind with love stories attached. Sasha lowered her eyes to the stack of papers in front of her. $300,000, 0 cents, per month. 300,000. More money than she'd ever seen in her life. More than enough to pay off the debts her father left behind, the hospital bills piling up for her mother, the lawyer's fees from a case that had already stolen 2 years of her life. But it wasn't the number that stunned her. It was the emptiness between the lines. No questions about her past, no concern about who she was or what she believed. Just a list of expectations and the price tag beside them. He pushed a pen across the table. His fingers brushed hers, not by intention, but by proximity. They were colder than she expected. "You're free to decline." His voice was low, even, as if it didn't matter either way. But that wasn't true, not entirely. But there was something in his eyes, something buried behind the calmness that watched her carefully. Not like a man trying to seduce, not even a man trying to negotiate. Like a man trying not to feel anything at all. Sasha looked out the floor-to-ceiling windows. Chicago stretched out below them like a steel and glass labyrinth. Down there, she had no name, no rights, no clean slate. In here. And she would be Mrs. Landon Hayes. For a year. Maybe less if the terms went badly. She looked back at the contract. It had a clause stating that if she broke any part of the agreement, another clause in finer print mentioned she'd be living in his residence, required to appear as a united front at quarterly board dinners, attend one charity event, and... Her eyes froze. Clause 13. In the presence of the child, the contract shall remain confidential. The child must not be informed of the marriage's conditional status under any circumstance. That made her chest tighten. No. Landon's expression didn't change. But she doesn't speak. He finally met her eyes. Storm-colored, unreadable. 5. Her name is Lizzie. Is she your daughter? He didn't answer. Instead, he stood, walked to the minibar, and poured a glass of water. Not for himself, for her. He set it down next to the pen. "We need more time." Sasha looked at the glass. A small act of decency, unexpected. She hadn't had many of those since walking out of Logan Correctional Facility 8 months early for good behavior. A phrase that meant little when no one would hire you, no one would rent to you, and your own reflection stopped looking back at you with hope. She didn't ask why he'd chosen her. Maybe he needed someone with no one left to call. Wanting someone desperate. Or maybe, just maybe, he'd seen something in her that reminded him of himself. She signed. The pen moved slowly across the page. The sound of ink against paper felt louder than it should have. When she reached the final page, her hand trembled, but only slightly. He took the contract back without a word, folded it, locked it away. "You'll move in tonight. I'll have my driver pick you up at 7. Any louder? Lizzie? She'll meet you there." Later that evening, the house wasn't what she expected. Not a modern mansion. No chrome or granite. Instead, it was a tall, ivy-wrapped brownstone in Lincoln Park. Old bones, quiet corners, a place with ghosts, maybe. The housekeeper, Marion, greeted her with a short nod. No smile, no judgment, just a nod. "You'll be on the second floor, the room across from Miss Lizzie's." Miss Lizzie. Sasha had never heard a child referred to with such formality. It made her nervous. She unpacked a small duffel bag. 3 shirts, 1 coat, a single photo of her mother from 2 years ago, taken the day before she collapsed. There was a knock. She turned. The girl in the doorway looked like a painting. Pale dress, dark curls, eyes too large for her face. They just stared at each other. Sasha knelt slowly. "Hi." The girl didn't speak. She just walked into. After a moment, she said quietly, "Are you my mommy now?" Sasha's breath caught. No one told her she would ask. She knelt in front of Lizzie, unsure what to say. "I'm here to take care of you." Lizzie nodded, looked away, then leaned against her shoulder. A small warmth pressed into Sasha's side. A heartbeat. And Sasha, for the first time in a long time, felt afraid of breaking something that mattered. In the hallway, Landon stood silently, watching the scene unfold. He didn't smile. He didn't speak. But his hand pressed slightly against the wall, as if keeping himself from going in. Chapter 2. Invisible Threads. The room fell quiet when she walked in. Not because she was late. Not because she was new. Because everyone knew exactly who she was, or who they thought she was. "That's her," someone whispered. "A contract wife they say the CEO brought in." Figures. "Look at the shoes." She's in a hoodie. Sasha kept her head down. She didn't wear labels, couldn't afford them. Her portfolio had been anonymously submitted and anonymously accepted. That was supposed to protect her. But one look at the way the room bent around her, and she knew. Word had spread faster than design drafts through a deadline. Her desk was tucked into the farthest corner. No nameplate, no welcome. Just a chair with uneven legs and a computer with yesterday's login still open. She sat. She breathed. And then she worked. The lead designer, Marion Mao, was tall, beautiful, and held together like a silk blouse never meant to wrinkle. She hovered behind Sasha's desk by noon. "Lane, is it?" "We don't usually hire walk-ins." Sasha didn't "So you're clear. The team's been working on the Astor project for weeks. If you're just here to watch the plants grow, step aside." Sasha blinked. "I'd like to contribute." "Contribute?" Marion tilted her head. "Then take this." She dropped a thick binder onto Sasha's desk. "And prove you belong." "By when?" "By morning." It was a test. Sasha knew it. They all did. The kind of project people handed out just to watch you fail. That night, the office emptied. The city went to sleep. But Sasha stayed. She sketched. She revised. She erased and began again. Between pages, her mind drifted to the way she'd silently followed her to the door that morning, clutching the hem of Sasha's coat and saying nothing, as if goodbye might be permanent. It made her want to succeed. Not for the contract, not for the salary, but for the child who was slowly beginning to believe in her. By dawn, her fingers were blistered. Her eyes stung from the glow of the screen. But the presentation was ready. She printed the final design sheet and slipped it into the binder. And then she walked it to Marion's desk. The next morning, the team filed in, coffees in hand, lipstick reapplied, eyes scanning Sasha like she'd wandered in from the wrong side of Michigan Avenue. Marion opened the binder. Silence. Then, "You didn't do this?" "Excuse me?" "Sketches. This color theory, this layout, you expect me to believe a glorified live-in maid came up with this?" And words struck. But Sasha didn't flinch. "I'm not a maid." Marion leaned forward. "Then prove it wasn't your husband who handed you those ideas." The room tensed. Sasha's hands stayed at her sides, calm, steady. "Landon doesn't even know I submitted." The mention of his first name drew gasps. Marion's eyes narrowed. She turned to the rest of the team. "Let's let the client decide." 3 days later. The design pitch was held in the upper conference wing. Executives, marketing leads, and the client, the head of a luxury development group, circled the table. Sasha stood at the edge, quiet, unseen. Marion presented the mock-ups. When she opened the final folder, Sasha's design filled the screen. The client leaned forward. "This one, the final draft." Marion smiled, took credit, didn't blink. "It's the one I thought might resonate most." Celine said nothing. But Landon was in the room. He hadn't announced himself when he entered, had taken a chair in the back, hadn't made eye contact once. Till that moment. He lifted his gaze and looked at Sasha. Not like a CEO reviewing staff. Like a man who recognized a signature he'd once seen in a coffee shop sketchbook. After the pitch, as the room cleared, Sasha turned to leave. Landon stopped her. "Your hands are blistered." And she looked down. "Was worth it? They shouldn't have taken your work." She didn't expect him to acknowledge it. "It doesn't matter?" "It does to me." She looked up. He handed her something. A small, thin case. Inside, her name engraved on a black access card. "You're now lead design consultant. Report directly to me. The team will follow orders." Pause. "I performed at the record," he added quietly. "You don't need to prove anything to anyone." That night, Sasha sat at the kitchen table with Lizzie. The girl had drawn something, crayons scattered across the table. She held up a picture of 3 stick figures. One tall, one short, one with wild curly hair. Sasha smiled. "Who's that?" Lizzie pointed. "You." "The others?" The little girl reached forward, touched Sasha's hand, and whispered, "Us family." For the first time, Sasha didn't feel like she was pretending. As a wife. Not as a designer. Not even as someone worthy of love. She just felt like someone who was finally being seen. Chapter 3. The Girl Who Doesn't Speak. The door creaked as Sasha pushed it open. It was the only room in the entire house that felt lived in, not just furnished. A paper crown sat tilted on a teddy bear's head. A pale pink blanket with fading unicorns was folded too neatly on the bed. The curtains fluttered from an open window, letting in the crisp scent of October. And in the middle of it all sat Lizzie, cross-legged on the rug, silent, holding a crayon but not drawing. Just holding. Sasha sat on the floor beside her, not too close, not too far. "What color are you holding?" she asked softly. Lizzie didn't answer. Sasha smiled gently. "Let me guess, purple." Lizzie didn't move. "I used to draw with purple when I was little. It felt like the quietest color, like it knew secrets." Still no answer, but Lizzie looked at her, the smallest tilt of her head, Enough. That evening, Sasha began a quiet ritual. Not rules, not structure, just presence. Every night after work, she'd leave her laptop closed, her phone on silent. She'd sit on the rug, even if Lizzie didn't speak, and simply be. Sometimes she hummed, sometimes she read aloud, sometimes she folded origami from the pages of junk mail. Lizzie never responded, but she never left either. One night, after a particularly brutal meeting at work where Sasha had been praised in public but side-eyed in private, she walked in and found a small paper heart folded on her pillow. No note, just the heart. Purple. The next night, Sasha brought a blanket and curled up beside Lizzie on the rug. Do you want a story tonight? No answer. Okay, I'll tell one anyway. She began softly. Once upon a time, there was a little girl who didn't like to speak because she'd once been left alone in a place too loud, too big, too full of people who didn't listen. So she stopped talking, until one day, someone sat next to her and didn't say much at all. They just stayed. Lizzie looked over. Her eyes were wide but not scared. Sasha smiled. Sometimes staying is enough. Sasha began learning the rhythm of Lizzie's silence. She didn't push. She didn't pry. She just stayed. And slowly the silence shifted. It wasn't empty, it was filled with unspoken questions. Trust wasn't spoken, it was built, breath by breath, moment by moment. Then came the night of the thunderstorm. Lightning cracked through the city sky, splitting it wide open. Sasha jolted awake at the sound, not because of the storm, but because of the small figure curled up on the floor outside her bedroom. Lizzie, barefoot, clutching her blanket, eyes round with fear, but her voice silent. Sasha knelt beside her. Hey honey, did the storm scare you? Lizzie nodded, one tiny movement. You want to sleep in here tonight? No answer, but she didn't move away. Sasha reached out, took her hand. It was cold, so small. Come on, she whispered, just for tonight. Lizzie crawled into bed, still quiet, still watching. Sasha wrapped the blanket around her shoulders. The storm raged outside, the windows trembled. Inside the room, there was only the sound of two breaths, one steady, one a little fast. Then, just as Sasha began to drift off again, she felt it. Tiny arms wrapped around her waist. Voice, so soft she wasn't sure she heard it at first. Please, don't leave again. Sasha's chest shattered. It wasn't just the words. It was the way Lizzie said again, like she remembered someone who had once stayed, then disappeared. Slowly, met her eyes. I'm not going anywhere. Lizzie blinked up at her. I promise. Sasha nodded. I promise. Down the hall, Landon stood in the shadows, watching the doorframe. He hadn't meant to check in. But something about the thunder, the way it used to make Lizzie scream when she was younger, it still brought him to her room every time. This time, he didn't step in. I just listened. And for the first time in over a year, he heard his daughter speak. The next morning, the house changed. Subtly. Lizzie followed Sasha into the kitchen, helped stir the pancake batter, drew suns and stick figures on Sasha's notepad while she typed emails. When Marion brought in the mail, Lizzie looked up and said, "Thank you." The housekeeper nearly dropped the tray. That evening, as Sasha sorted laundry, she found a small picture in the pocket of Lizzie's dress. 3 figures. One tall, one short, one small. A heart above their heads, purple. That night, as Sasha turned off the lights, Lizzie climbed into her lap without a word. She rested her head on Sasha's chest, right over her heartbeat. Tell me a story. Sasha's throat tightened. Okay? A real one. Okay. She hesitated. And then she began. Once, I had a baby. Lizzie sat up slowly. I lost her. The child blinked. Why? There was a fire, and a lot of confusion. I was very sick after, my memory. She touched her head. It broke, and I forgot things, important things. Did she look like me? Sasha froze, then whispered. Exactly like you. Lizzie looked at her for a long time. Then maybe I'm her. Sasha wanted to say yes, and she wanted to cry, and she wanted to hold her and never let go. But all she could do was whisper, maybe, and wrap her arms around the little girl, as if that maybe was enough. From the hallway, Landon turned away before his emotions betrayed him. He knew the truth. And it was time, soon, to tell her. Chapter 4. Terms and Conditions. It was the first time they'd spoken outside the walls of duty. Sasha hadn't meant to be there. She was only dropping off revised mock-ups to Landon's assistant. But the elevator stalled at the rooftop level, and the soft breeze pulled her out like a thread unraveling. She didn't expect him there. Yet there he was, tall, unreadable, drink in hand, collar undone. Not the CEO. Just a man in shadows. You shouldn't be here, he said without turning. Neither should you, she replied softly. He glanced at her then. Not with judgment. Just recognition. She stepped forward. I came to ask about Clause 14. He arched a brow. You memorized the contract? No, but I reread it when your daughter asked if I'd leave again. That silenced him. Sasha folded her arms. There's nothing in there about taking care of a child, about being her emotional anchor, about being the first person she's spoken to in a year. He said nothing. Why, if that's going to be part of the job, I want a revision. Now he turned to face her fully. For a revision. I'm not a puppet, Mr. Hayes. I'm not a signature on your paperwork. I'm a person. You think I don't know that? I don't think you let yourself. But there it was again. That spark behind his calm, like something used to burn there. She stepped closer. You hired me to play a part, but your daughter made it real. So if I'm going to keep caring for her like this, I want it on my terms. Which are? I'll take no salary. The money will be repayment for my mother's care, but nothing more. And I'm allowed to work, full-time. Landon's jaw clenched. You don't need to work. You have everything you need. I have nothing, she said calmly. Not my name, not my voice, not even my past. You bought time, Mr. Hayes, not me. He looked at her then, like he wasn't used to people saying no. You're not afraid I'll cancel the agreement? Maybe I want you to. The wind brushed her hair back as she met his eyes. I'm going to stand in this for Lizzie, not you. I stay as myself. Silence. Then, bye. He turned, finished his drink. Any other demands? Why? She pulled a paper from her jacket. Divorce clause. Signed in advance. 1 year, no more. He stared at the paper. That's bold. It's honest. Why if I don't want to sign it? Then I woke. He took the pen slowly. You're not what I expected. Neither are you. He signed. And for a long moment they just stood there, strangers bound by ink and something neither one of them had names for yet. The next morning, Sasha sat across from Landon in the breakfast nook. It Lesby between them, quietly drawing. Every few minutes, she reached for Sasha's hand. Landon noticed. Sasha noticed him noticing. Neither spoke. Mr. Hayes? Sasha asked. Landon? While the blinked. Excuse me? We're revising terms. Might as well revise titles. A beat. Then she nodded. Landon. Lizzie smiled, without knowing why. Later that day, Hayes Corp. Sasha reported for her first official shift in the design department, no longer as an intern, but as lead consultant. Eyes watched her, some envious, some curious, a few quietly vicious. Marian Mao barely acknowledged her. But Sasha didn't care. She was here to work, not to explain herself. She pulled her hair back, rolled up her sleeves, and started again. In the middle of the day, an assistant appeared at her desk. "Miss Lane, the CEO would like to see you. I have a full schedule today." I insisted. The elevator was quiet as they rose. When the doors opened, she didn't walk into Landon's office. She walked into an art gallery. On one of the private wings he'd never shown anyone. Paintings lined the walls, sketches in black ink, minimalist, brutal. And she turned slowly, then froze. Her own work. Of her early designs, a sketch she had lost after the fire 5 years ago. "Where did you get this?" Landon appeared behind her. "It was submitted anonymously to a charity auction. I outbid a fashion house for it." "Why?" "Because I recognized it." He paused. "Because the night of the hospital fire, you were wearing it on your coat." She turned to him, throat tight. "You knew me then?" He nodded once. "I by name, but yes." She looked back at the sketch. It was a woman in motion, walking against wind, her hair wild, her spine unbroken. "You remember more than you let on." "I do." Back at her desk, she sat in silence. Then, slowly, for the first time in years, she picked up a pen and began sketching from memory. To a ring. A child's hand. A name she couldn't quite remember but somehow always carried inside her. That night, Lizzie curled up beside her and whispered, "You look happier now." Sasha brushed hair from the girl's forehead. "I think I'm remembering who I used to be." "I like who you are now." Sasha smiled. "Me too." Downstairs, Landon stared at the clause she'd made him sign. 1 year. No questions, no regrets. But a part of him already knew. He'd never be able to let her go. Chapter 5. The Blueprints. It started with a missing folder. Sasha returned from lunch to find her desk drawers open. The contents rearranged, not enough to be obvious, but just enough for her to notice. She frowned. The blueprint mock-ups she'd been developing for the Arbor Line launch, a nature-inspired interior design project. All except a single sketch, left deliberately behind. A signature corner curl, the faint smudge of pastel green. To work. Her voice tightened in her throat. "Marian," she said, stepping over to the department lead's desk. "Huh? Olivia, did you borrow my Arbor files?" Marian didn't look up from her tablet. "Why would I need student sketches? You should keep better track of your things." I just stared at her. At that smile. That dismissal. She'd seen it before in courtrooms, job interviews, grocery aisles. The world loved a woman with no voice. Not anymore. She returned to her desk and began rebuilding. From memory. From intuition. She didn't need the originals. She was the original. But something gnawed at her, a chill beneath her skin. The presentation. Monday morning, 9:00 a.m. The executive boardroom gleamed under recessed lighting. Long mahogany table, 12 chairs, 6 men in suits. Sasha stood at the edge, binder in hand. Across from her, Marian, standing confidently beside the projector. The screen lit up. Sasha froze. Her blueprint. The soft curve aesthetic. The foliage motif she'd sketched in the hospital lobby waiting for her mother's test results. The sliding wall panels with built-in organic light. Stolen. Presented. Claimed. By someone else. Marian cleared her throat. This concept, ladies and gentlemen, combines minimalism and biophilic design. I believe it captures the future of luxury. She paused. Any questions? Sasha didn't move. Not yet. Landon walked in 5 minutes late, quiet as always. He didn't look at anyone as he took his seat. But the moment he saw the design, his gaze flicked to Sasha. She said nothing, but her eyes said everything. After the pitch, as the clients deliberated, Landon approached Marion with his usual composure. "Strong presentation," he said evenly. "Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Though I'm confused about the credit." "Pardon?" "I've seen this work before, but not in your sketch style." She flinched barely. "Perhaps a coincidence?" "Perhaps." He turned to Sasha. "Lane, walk with me. The Confrontation CEO office." He didn't say a word until they reached the glass-walled sanctuary of his office. Then he closed the door. "And much of that design was yours." "Of it." "Why, you have no backup files?" "We were taken." He watched her. "Violet, you believe me, don't you?" A pause. "I do." Her chest loosened just slightly. "Why, I can't reprimand her without proof. She wins. If you outshine her." She shook her head. "You want me to build again, in silence, in shadows?" "Norman," he said quietly, "I want you to burn the building down." That night, Sasha sat beside Lizzie, who was carefully coloring the edge of a large paper. "Why are you drawing?" Sasha asked gently. "A secret." "Can I see?" Lizzie held it up. A large building with light coming out of all its windows. 3 stick figures stood out front. A heart hovered above them. Sasha smiled. "It's beautiful." Lizzie leaned closer. "I made it for your wall. When you get your real office..." Sasha's heart cracked open just a little more. "Thank you, baby." "Is that okay, to call you that?" Sasha's throat thickened. "Play," she whispered. "That's okay." The return. By Friday, Sasha had completed a new version of the Arbor line. It was sharper, smarter, bolder. She submitted it under a new name, Lane Collective, the brand she'd dreamed of creating before prison took her last name and repurposed it into a warning. Landon made sure it reached the board himself. The client's reaction was immediate. "This version. Who designed it?" Landon smiled faintly. "A woman who doesn't need a microphone to be heard. We want her name, her signature. You'll have it on the cover of the official launch." Marion's face went pale. "Mr. Hayes?" "Miss Mao," Landon cut in coolly, "this company doesn't tolerate theft or cowardice." Pause. "You're dismissed." She didn't argue. She just left, head high, reputation undone. That evening, Hayes home. Sasha found Landon in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, preparing dinner with far too much concentration for a man who usually ordered from Michelin star chefs. "This was unnecessary," she said quietly. "Why was? The public firing?" "What?" "I disagree. You didn't do it for the company." "Alone," he admitted. "I did it for you." She blinked. He stirred the sauce, carefully. "Because she underestimated you. And I've done the same." "And what do you see now?" He turned to her. "A woman who never needed this contract in the first place." She swallowed. "Then why did you choose me?" "Because you were the only one who didn't pretend to be someone else." He paused. "You were honest, even when it cost you everything." Her voice softened. "I was terrified." Was I?" That night, after Lizzie fell asleep between them on the couch, Sasha whispered, "You knew the design was mine, before I said anything." He didn't open his eyes. "I did." "Why didn't you say it out loud?" "Because sometimes, the right people don't need proof." She nodded, curling into the moment. For the first time in years, the silence wasn't punishment. It was peace. Chapter 6. I remember her voice. It started with a voicemail. Dr. Halverson, from the hospital's pediatric neurology unit. "Miss Lane, there's something odd in your file. You might want to stop by." Sasha hadn't expected to ever return. Not after she'd walked out of those sterile white halls with discharge papers in one hand and a criminal record in the other. Not after the fire. But here she was again, 5 years later, heels echoing too loudly against the polished tile, heart thudding like a warning in her chest. Inside the office. Dr. Halverson looked older than she remembered, softer around the eyes. "Recall being admitted after the fire in North Mercy Hospital?" he asked gently. Sasha nodded. "I was told I inhaled smoke, lost consciousness. They found me holding a bracelet that wasn't mine." He pulled out a folder. Inside, a chart. Her name, date of admittance, circled words. Postpartum memory lapse. 5 years ago. There was internal bleeding consistent with labor complications. She stared. "I had a baby?" "It was never confirmed. You were unconscious for several days. Your records were marked incomplete. The system was hacked shortly after the fire. Half the fires went missing. But this," he tapped the chart. "This wasn't erased." She sat back, breathless. "Where's the baby?" "We don't know." "Why do you lose a child?" "We didn't lose her, Miss Lane. Someone took her." Sasha walked out of the hospital and stood in the wind, shaking. The past unraveled behind her like thread from a coat sleeve. Fast, silent, unforgiving. "I had a daughter. Back at the Hayes house." Lizzie met her at the door with a picture. "It's us," she said softly. 3 stick figures again. Only this time, the one labeled Mommy had a heart over her head. "I made it while you were gone." Sasha knelt slowly. "Sweetheart, where did you learn to draw this?" "It was in my old room, in the pink box, under the bed." Sasha froze. "You mean the box with the bracelet?" Lizzie nodded. "Mommy wore it." "Who told you that?" "No one, I just know." That night, Sasha couldn't sleep. She sat on the porch, watching the light in Landon's study glow long past midnight. At 2:17 a.m., the door opened behind her. "You're not wearing a coat," he said. She didn't answer. "You okay?" He turned slowly. "Look, tell me something honestly." He didn't move. 5 years ago, after the fire, did you know who I was?" He hesitated. Right away." "Maybe eventually?" "A beat." "Maybe." "Why didn't you say anything?" "Because the woman I met back then had no name, just eyes I couldn't forget. She was holding a baby and oozed someone to save her. But by the time I reached her, she was gone." Sasha's voice was barely audible. "What do you think? Lizzie could be mine?" He didn't answer. He didn't have to. The next morning, the park bench. Sasha walked Lizzie to the park. Sat with her on the bench, let the wind curl between them. "Do you remember anything from before this house?" she asked gently. Lizzie tilted her head. "I remember a lady singing to me." "Why song?" She hummed, softly, barely more than a whisper. Sasha's eyes filled. "I used to sing that to my belly." Lizzie leaned in. "I think you're my mommy." And there it was. No test, no report. Just knowing. Bone deep, soul clear. Back at the house, later that night, Landon found Sasha standing in the hallway, holding the bracelet. "I think she's mine." "I know she is." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I wasn't sure. Until now." She looked at him, eyes filled with more pain than blame. "Did you keep her from me?" "No. She was abandoned at a clinic. I took her in because I recognized the bracelet. I didn't know you were alive until your name resurfaced in an old article. So you married me. To protect you. From the media, from my father, from the people who erased you." He stepped closer. "But also because I never forgot your voice." She stared at him. "Landon, If I had known. He nodded. I know. We lost years. We still have the rest. That night, Lizzie fell asleep with both of them on either side. And for the first time, Sasha whispered, "Good night, my little girl." She didn't need a memory to confirm it. And she had something stronger now. A voice that had once been silenced, finally remembered. The confession that came too late. Sasha hadn't meant to eavesdrop. She was returning Lizzie's forgotten storybook when she heard the voice. Low, firm, unfamiliar. Landon's father. The board is restless. The rumors about your wife are resurfacing. They're just that. Rumors. She has a record, Landon. A sealed one, but not invisible. And now she's in charge of your daughter. Daughter. Landon corrected, voice harder than stone. It's time, the man said coolly. Divorce her, cleanly, quietly, or I'll initiate a vote of no confidence. Nonsense. Then, I won't do it. Then you'll lose the company. Sasha stepped back, her chest hollow. She didn't hear the rest. Didn't need to. Later that night, he found her on the balcony, the storm licking the sky in silver flashes. You shouldn't be out here, he said softly. She turned slowly. Is it true? Why did you hear? Enough. Then yes. She nodded, arms folded tightly across herself. You're going to lose everything, for me. For you, he said. For the truth, for what we are. For her. You're a CEO, Landon. You don't get to live like this, in love with a woman the world calls a criminal. Then I don't want to be a CEO anymore. She stepped forward. That's easy to say in the dark. I'll say it in the light, too. She reached into her pocket, pulled out the divorce clause, signed. I never intended to stay longer than a year. Clause means nothing now. It means everything, she whispered. It's the only thing I've ever had control over. His hands clenched. So this is it? It's what's best for you. Don't you dare make that decision for me. She stepped back. I'm not making it for you. I'm making it for her. I won't let her grow up watching the world drag you down for loving someone like me. He exhaled slowly. You're not someone like anything. You're Sasha Lane, the only woman I've ever... He stopped. She turned, walked back into the house. 3 days later, the media broke the story. Dio's wife linked to 5-year-old prison scandal. Board members voted. Shares fell. Landon stood firm. But Sasha disappeared. No note, no press conference, no scene. Just a goodbye whispered in the hallway to Lizzie while the child slept. 1 week later, public gala. Landon attempted alone. Not by choice, by strategy. He smiled for the cameras, nodded to shareholders. Inside, he was hollow, until a voice in his earpiece. Sir, there's a guest backstage. He walked behind the curtain, expecting a reporter. Instead, he saw her. Hair swept back, eyes clear, wearing the same necklace from the night of the fire. You shouldn't be here, he said. I'm not here for you. Then why? She held out a flash drive. Proof of who orchestrated the scandal. The bribes, the silencing. It was never me. He took it. By now. Because I'm tired of being erased. That night. At home. Lizzie stood in the doorway of her room. Is Mommy coming back? Landon knelt beside her. I hope so. Did she leave because of me? I noticed the word no, he whispered. She laughed because she loves you. Lizzie nodded, quietly. Then I'll wait. Next day, press conference. Landon stood before the crowd. 5 years ago, a woman was framed for a crime she didn't commit. She served time, lost her child, lost her name, but she didn't lose her courage. He paused. The woman is my wife. Matchbulbs burst. Reporters yelled. Oh, and if this company refuses to stand behind her truth, then I'll walk away from it all. Later that night, a knock on the door. He opened it. She stood there. Same eyes, same fire. But this time, no hesitation. I'm not here to fix anything, she said. Good, he whispered. Just stay. She stepped in. Lizzie ran from the hallway and wrapped her arms around her. Mommy, she cried. I'm here. And this time, she didn't leave. Chapter 8. The Crash. The argument started over something small. Missed call. Misunderstanding. Sasha had gone to meet with the attorney who helped clear her name. Landon thought she was avoiding him. Again. Why didn't you just tell me? He'd asked, arms folded tight. Because I didn't want to add another scandal to your week. You're not a scandal, Sasha. You don't have to say that anymore, she said, voice tired. We've already given the public their headline. This isn't about headlines. But she was already grabbing her coat. I'm going to pick up Lizzie. Let me come. No, I need the quiet. He watched her leave. Regretted every word he hadn't said. 6 blocks away, Sasha's hands tightened around the wheel. She wasn't crying, but something hurt. Maybe it was the fear that no matter how far she came, the past would always be closer. Maybe it was how fast her heart beat every time she imagined Lizzie's face, the moment she left again. Maybe it was the headlights that appeared too fast in her rearview mirror. Too fast. Too close. Screeching brakes. Middle. Black. Loose. Emergency room, 2 hours later. Landon burst through the doors with a soaked shirt, eyes hollow. Lane. Sasha Lane. Car crash on Monroe. A nurse guided him to a glass wall. Inside, Sasha unconscious. Monitors blinking softly. She was conscious at the scene but passed out from the pain, the doctor said. She's stable now. But there's something else. She was pregnant. I'm sorry, we couldn't save the baby. The world tilted. Landon stared through the glass, barely breathing. She never told me. Meanwhile, Hayes' residence. Lizzie waited by the door, coat on, backpack ready. She watched the clock tick. She waited. And waited. When Marion bent down to speak to her gently, the child only said, "Is Mommy okay?" Marion didn't answer. Lizzie ran to her room and locked the door. Back at the hospital, midnight. Sasha woke slowly. Lights, beeping, cold sheets. Then Landon's hand, holding hers. "Hey," he whispered. Her voice cracked. "Where's Lindsay?" "She's okay. Marion's with her." Pause. "The baby?" He didn't lie. She turned her face toward the wall. Didn't speak. He sat beside her, never letting go of her hand. The next day, Sasha returned home against doctor's orders. She didn't want pity. Just wanted Lizzie. When she opened the front door, Lizzie was already running down the stairs. The mommy, which bent her wincing and caught her in her arms. "I'm okay, baby. You were gone a long time." "I know," she whispered, "but I'm not going anywhere." Lizzie's eyes searched hers. "Even if the baby's not coming anymore?" Sasha's throat clenched. "Even then." Lizzie nodded, pressed her cheek into Sasha's chest. "You're still my mommy." That night, Landon brought Sasha tea. She didn't drink it, but just stared out the window. "It wasn't your fault," he said gently. "It's always my fault. Every time I try to hold on to something, it breaks." He walked over, sat beside her, then let it break. She turned to him. "Let everything break, and let me be what stays." She closed her eyes. It hurts. I know. He wrapped his arms around her. And this time, she didn't resist. A week later, follow-up appointment. The doctor confirmed what Sasha already knew. The pregnancy loss was complete, but the rest of your health is strong. Emotionally, that's another journey. She nodded. Thank you. As she left the office, she found Landon waiting in the hallway. You didn't have to come. I know. They walked out together. Quiet. That evening, Lizzie's room. Sasha tucked the child in. As she moved to leave, Lizzie reached for her hand. If we had the baby, what would her name be? Sasha thought for a long time, then said, Hope. Lizzie smiled sleepily. I like that. Downstairs, Landon was making tea again. Sasha joined him. I want to try again, she said. You don't have to prove anything. I'm not. I want to live again. He looked at her. Well, and me? With her, with whatever comes next. He took her hand, held it against his heart. Then let's start over. Chapter 9. The memory that wasn't lost. It began with a dream, not a nightmare, just something soft. A woman's voice, a child's laugh echoing behind it, a hallway bathed in sunlight, a melody Sasha couldn't remember learning but knew by heart. She woke up with the tune on her lips, tears streaming down her cheeks. It was her, she whispered to herself. It was us. Later that morning, the bookstore. Sasha wandered into the bookstore on accident. She was just walking, trying to find quiet, trying not to think about what they'd lost, what might still come. But the scent of pages and age pulled her in. In the back, under a faded children's section, she found it. A small music box. Porcelain white with tiny painted violets. She turned the crank. The tune that played made her knees buckle. A lullaby from her dream. The one she used to sing before she even knew she was a mother. A voice startled her. It belonged to a woman who used to sit in that corner every Saturday, said the shopkeeper. She had a baby, quiet little girl, would hum that tune while feeding her. Sasha swallowed hard. Do you remember her name? The man shook his head. But she always wore this bracelet. He gestured toward the glass counter. There it was. The twin to the one Lizzie had kept hidden for years. Sasha's hand trembled as she reached for it. On the inside, a small inscription. Hope Lane, March 11. Hope. That name again. That's my daughter, she whispered. Back at the house, garden. The sun was setting when she returned. Landon was trimming dead leaves from a potted lemon tree. He looked up. You've been gone all day. She walked straight toward him and placed the music box in his hands. This is from the day I gave birth. He stared down at it. Then at her. I remember the bracelet, he said. She had it when I found her, at the hospital. The baby? Wrapped in the same blanket as Lizzie's. She nodded. We didn't lose her. She looked toward the house, where Lizzie was reading quietly by the window. We just lost time. That night. Sasha sat beside Lizzie's bed, the music box between them. She cranked the key gently. The lullaby began to play. Lizzie looked up. I know this song. I used to sing it to you. Before I was here? Lizzie was quiet for a long time. Then, that's why I always felt like you were already my mommy. Landon stood in the doorway, unseen. He watched the two of them, joined by memory, by melody, by something deeper than time. He pressed his fingers to his lips, closed his eyes. And for the first time in years, he thanked whoever was listening. The next day, a letter arrived. A certified letter. Return address, North Mercy Hospital Archives. Sasha opened it with shaking hands. Inside, A copy of the original birth record, smoke-damaged, edges curled, but legible. Child Elizabeth Lane. Mother Sasha Lane. Status transferred to emergency shelter due to maternal incapacitation. No father listed. No one ever came to claim her. Until Landon. Until now. Sasha handed the paper to Landon in silence. He didn't speak. He just walked over and hugged her, the kind of hug that doesn't say, "I'm sorry," but "I'm with you." That night, they sat by the fireplace, Lizzie asleep upstairs. "You never asked me to be anything more than your wife on paper," she said softly. "Because I didn't want to make you choose." "Why you chose me," she whispered. Every time he turned to her. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the old contract. "Do you know what this is?" "It's 1-year deal. It ends in 12 days. "I know." She looked up at him, eyes clear. "So I'd like to write a new one." He blinked. "Another contract?" "No," she smiled. "Just vow that you're 10. Your daughter's favorite color is pink." The box arrived the morning of the ceremony. No label, no card. Just a pale pink ribbon tied around cream linen. Sasha opened it with gentle hands. Inside a small pink dress, hand-stitched vintage buttons. And folded beneath it, a photograph. Sasha in a hospital bed 5 years ago. Landon beside her, hair messy, eyes tired but smiling. Baby Lizzie asleep on her chest. Someone had kept this all along. "This is ours," Sasha whispered. "She always was." 3 hours later, garden ceremony. There were no reporters, no shareholders, no one to impress. Just Marion, standing at the edge of the garden with flowers in her hands. Lennon in a navy suit. Sasha in ivory, no veil. No train, just peace in her eyes. And Lizzie, spinning in her pink dress, barefoot in the grass. "Are you nervous?" Landon asked quietly as they stood side by side. "No." She looked at him. "I've already lost everything before. This time I'm walking in whole." He nodded. "Me too." The officiant smiled gently. "We were never strangers, just two people trying to survive the same storm. Did you vow from this day forward to be not just partners in business or caretakers of circumstance, but builders of a life, bound not by paper, but by promise?" "We do," they said together. "And do you vow to protect the quiet between you, the stillness where trust lives even when the world grows loud again?" "We do." "Then by the only power that matters, love, I declare you what you always were." Home. Leption, just the three of them. Landon poured lemonade into 3 mismatched cups. Lizzie sat cross-legged on a picnic blanket, dress wrinkled, cheeks flushed. "Can I ask something?" she said. "Anything," Sasha. "Will I always be yours?" Sasha smiled, reached forward. "We were never apart. We just took a while to find each other." Landon looked at her. "Are you still wanting to name her Hope?" "We already did." Lizzie beamed. "Hope's my middle name." "Exactly," Sasha whispered. As the sky turned gold, Lizzie lay her head on Sasha's lap. "You know what?" she mumbled, half asleep. "My babe, favorite color, is still pink." Sasha laughed softly. "Mine too." That night, after Lizzie was tucked in, Sasha walked into Landon's study and placed something on the desk. The original marriage contract, shredded. Beside it, a notebook. On the first page, in her handwriting. "New terms, no expiration, no conditions, just this. I'll stay, as long as you never ask me to leave." He looked at her. "Then let's make that binding." Outside, the wind blew the garden gate, open and closed. Inside, 3 people sat by the fireplace. No longer bound by silence, is no longer pretending. Just a mother, a father, and a child in a pink dress. Finally home, the colors she never forgot. Some women wait to be chosen. Asha Lane never waited. She survived. She walked through fire, memory loss, false imprisonment, loneliness, and still found her way back to a little girl with the same eyes, and a man who had once sworn he'd never love again. They weren't perfect. There were no grand proposals or luxury honeymoons. Just whispered apologies in hospital rooms, forehead kisses after nightmares, and a pink dress that proved love could outlast loss. And Landon Hayes, the CEO the world once feared, learned that some power isn't about money or legacy. It's about showing up. For a child, for a woman, for the life you almost missed because you were too afraid to believe in second chances. They didn't erase the past. They carried it. But they wrote something new over it. Letters, stories, bedtime lullabies, pancake breakfasts on Sundays. And one promise that wasn't spoken under oath, but lived in action. Even if the whole world doubts you, I won't. In the end, the contract didn't matter. The conditions, the wealth, the company. None of it meant more than the moment Lizzie whispered, "Mommy, I remember your voice." If you've ever felt like love passed you by, if you've ever been defined by a mistake or a chapter you didn't choose, know this. You are not too late. You are not too much. You are not unworthy. Love, the kind that heals, the kind that holds, doesn't ask you to be perfect. It only asks you to stay. What part of this story spoke to you? Was it the little girl's voice? The woman who refused to be erased? The man who learned how to love with gentleness? Share your heart in the comments. Someone out there might need your words as much as you once needed theirs. And if you're still waiting for your second chance, hold on. Sometimes, the very thing you're mourning becomes the thing that leads you home.